So this is a slide that you'll see now, and at the end of the session, it's just a short advertisement for all of our graduate programs here in the College of Education. So if you have any interest in looking at a program here with us, at the top you can see you can ask a question.
I'm going to give a plug for the library program, just
Okay.
because I'm the library program coordinator. So if anyone hasn't gone through and gotten their library degree, those were some of my very best years, was spent as a middle school and a high school librarian. And I do miss it. That is the one thing I miss about being in K-12 schools. I know it's gotten much harder, but I am the library program coordinator. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Well, I'm going to have to now give a plug for literacy. So I am the graduate literacy and dyslexia program coordinator. So if you're interested in being a reading specialist or getting your dyslexia endorsement, I see some of our students on today. I'm so excited. I see some alumni. I know I saw Misty Garrett in there. It's so good to see you all. And we just are two plugs. We're the only IDA accredited institution in the state of Arkansas. And if you are working on your CALT certification, that's Certified Academic Language Therapist, we are now giving some credit for that work. So if you have any questions, just send me an email.
Well, I should do a shameless plug too. I'm the program coordinator for the Advanced Studies and Teacher Leadership Program, which is a program for teachers who want to become master teachers, but don't want to change careers, don't want to become librarians or counselors or administrators. We have several different tracks you can follow. And of course, with all of our college ed programs, they are completely online. Okay, we're ready to start?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Okay, I'm gonna put you up, Jeff.
Okay, so today I've selected 10 books that I'm going to book talk. Some of them are from my last summer book talk, and some of them are books I'll be talking this summer. Once I finish, I will put in a link into the chat. That is my co-op schedule for the summer. So if you want to come see me live at a co-op, it has the links to the sessions. All you have to do is click on the links and sign up to whatever co-op you want to attend. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about is Long Road to the Circus by Betsy Bird. I fell in love with this book. It is a very strange book. It is a period piece about a young girl who lives in Michigan, and she wants to get out and see the world, but her family, expects her to follow the traditional female role of growing up, becoming a wife, learning how to do domestic things. And her sort of ne'er-do-well uncle and his family end up coming and living with them because he can't keep a job. And every morning she notices that he gets up and he walks down the road and leaves. And the family complains because he's getting out of work. And one morning she goes and follows him, and he goes down the road about an hour to a house owned by an eccentric old woman who raises ostriches. And he goes there and works for her and takes care of them. And she is determined to break the world's record that doesn't exist by having an ostrich and a horse pull a buggy. So they are working toward making this happen in the annual Founders Day parade. So the girl starts working with her uncle and riding ostriches, and she sees this as her way of getting out of Michigan because the old woman is a former circus performer. So the book is about how this young girl starts working with these ostriches, hoping to ride them right out of Michigan. It is a really sweet story, and At the end, you find out that this, not that the story is real, but the eccentric old lady is real. And there are information about when she was part of the circus. Okay, next. Second Chance of Benjamin Waterfall by James Bird. James Bird wrote The Brave, that was on the Charlie May list last year. And this is about a young Indigenous boy who lives in the city with his mother. And his father abandoned them or left them when he was like 10. So he has lots of bitter feelings toward his father. And he keeps stealing and he gets in trouble with the courts. And finally, the juvenile judge is going to send him away to juvenile detention. And his mother makes a deal with the judge to send him to live on the reservation with his father in sort of a boot camp program to straighten him up. And so he's sent off to the reservation. He gets there. His father is no longer an alcoholic. He's pulled his life together. He has a girlfriend and or a wife and a stepson. And so immediately Benjamin is jealous of this thing that he didn't get to experience with his father. And so they send him to this boot camp thing, and it's nothing like he expected. The person who's in charge of it is a teenage girl, and she has him doing all kinds of odd things that he just doesn't think have to do anything with being rehabilitated. But as the book progresses, he comes to understand his father better and comes to understand what they're trying to teach him, and work through his kleptomaniac issues, which really go back to his relationship with his father. It's a really good read. Okay.
Jeff, what level would that one be? I know the last one was lower middle, well, upper middle. I don't know. Because I loved The Long Road to the Circus as well, but this one I haven't read yet.
I would say this is probably upper middle to high school. There's nothing inappropriate or sexual in it. So it's not, but I think just the interest area would not be lower middle. However, I think it's on our reading list for next year for Charlie May.
Okay.
All These Bodies by Ken Dare Blake. This is not the typical book that I would read, but I absolutely loved it. It is based roughly on Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, and a real story of a killer who traveled through the Midwest in the 50s killing people. So the book starts with a young boy and his father, who's a sheriff, and the sheriff is called to come to a crime scene where a local family in this small rural town has been slaughtered, the whole entire family. So they get there, they have like a posse going out looking for whoever did it, and they can't find anybody, but the boy looks in the window and sees this young teenage girl covered in blood. And they arrest her. She is the accomplice, and they put her in jail, and she will not speak. And so the boy, his after school job is cleaning the sheriff's office, sort of like on Andy Griffith. And he cleans the building, and he starts talking to her in her cell, and they start a relationship. So finally, they are going to extradite her to a larger city to be tried for these crimes. And she says no, that the only person she will tell her story to is the boy. So the rest of the book is piece by piece him finding out the rest of the story. It's gory, it's bloody. Again, it's nothing like I would normally read. And I'm not even sure what attracted me to it. I read a review and for some reason just thought it sounded good. So again, this is very much upper secondary. It's YA. The Road to Wherever by John Ed Bradley. So I don't know anything about football, but apparently John Ed Bradley is some famous LSU football player. So if you know football, that might attract you to this book. This book is about a young boy whose father was in the Vietnam War. I believe it's Vietnam, and he is struggling with PTSD, and he leaves and abandons the family. And the young boy is very frustrated, and so his mother arranges for him to spend the summer traveling around with his father's cousins, and they are Ford men. And what they do is every summer they leave their jobs and they travel around the country to people who are rebuilding or rehabbing old Ford vehicles, and they go to the place, set up a tent and camp and live there while they are helping these people rehab their Ford vehicles. And as they travel, the young boy learns lots of lessons, learns lots of practical things to do, learns to love these adult cousins of his father's who he did not really know well beforehand. And by the end, when they get back home, they've built these great bonds, and it's just a really sweet story. My best friend Eric loves Ford trucks and is obsessed with them. He's a Ford man, and all the people in this book that they go visit are obsessed. So they're all a little quirky, and that makes the story entertaining too. Okay. In the Shadow of the Moon by Amy Cherix is the story. It's a nonfiction book, definitely high school level, about how the US and the Soviet Union, of course, had this great battle for space in the 60s or late 50s and 60s with Sputnik. And the interesting part to me, though, is that both groups recruited scientists who were Nazis to run the program. So these Nazi scientists moved to the United States, moved to the Soviet Union, and led our space program. And the first time I learned anything about this, this is before I read the book, there's a great show on Amazon Prime called Nazi Hunters. It's a period piece, it's completely unrealistic, but it's about a group of Jews in the 70s who decide to find hidden Nazis and kill them. And one of the very first people they find is a woman scientist working at NASA, and they rig her shower so that when she gets in the shower to take a shower, gas comes in and it kills her, which is sort of an ironic way to kill her. So it's true. I thought that was just sort of an interesting story, but it is based on truth because the US did recruit Nazi scientists to run our space program. So it's very interesting. Okay. The Beatrice Prophecy by Kate DiCamillo is different than anything I think that she's ever written. It is about a young girl who wakes up in a goat pen at a monastery, and she has no idea why she's there. She can't remember how she got there. And so pretty quickly, the priests put together that she is fulfilling a prophecy made years earlier that a young girl would rise up and rule everyone. And so and they find out that the king in the kingdom is trying to find her and kill her. So they don't want any trouble with the monastery. So they send her off with the goat and a monk to travel through the woods to get to a different location. And as they're traveling, more of the story pieces come into play, and she starts to remember and has memories of why she's there and what happened to her. I love this book. Erin, did you read this one?
Mm-hmm. I did. I don't know, am I muted?
No,
No.
you're good.
Okay. I liked it. I love Kate DiCamillo, but you're right. This one was definitely different. But this one is good, like upper elementary, middle level. But it was a good, yeah. It didn't give away too much, but it kept me, yes, kept me going. I
Yeah.
liked it.
I really liked it. It's on our list this year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's on our Charlie May
Yeah, it
list.
made it. And yeah, yep. Because Beatrice was spelled weird. That's why I remember it's on the list. Wasn't with an I.
Okay, next. The Barefoot Dreams of Petroluna. I love this book. It is about a young girl who lives in the, I guess it's the late 1800s. It's a period piece. She lives in Mexico, and it's time of the Mexican Revolution, and she is trying to get her siblings, her small siblings, brother and sister, and her grandmother to safety in the United States. So they are traveling across the desert, trying to stay away from revolutionaries who are going through and killing people. And so it's very dangerous. They're traveling by night. They're scrambling to try to have food to survive. They finally make it to the border of the US, and it's closed. And the revolutionaries are headed their way and closing in on them. And so it's about her attempts to get them to safety. I think it's an interesting book, and I'm sure it was written with the idea that it parallels what's happening today with immigrants coming from Mexico, trying to get to the border and trying to get to safety. But again, it's a period piece, but I truly loved it. Okay. My sister's Big Fat Indian Wedding. Of course, I was attracted to this because I loved My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the movie, and also because I love pink. And so the book cover, I know you can't judge a book by its cover, but the cover appealed to me. So this is about a young Indian girl who lives in a very traditional Indian family, and her sister is getting married. And she has two older sisters, both who are attorneys. She is in high school, but she has no desire to become a doctor or a lawyer. And that's the plan that her family has for her because she really loves music. So the weekend of the big wedding, of course, there's family in from all over the world. It's a huge house. They've got all these different events coming up, happening, and different foods. It's very interesting and very descriptive about the food, about the wedding ceremony. I learned so much. It was very interesting. But the main story is that she needs to escape during the wedding weekend long enough to go compete in a music competition that will get her a full scholarship to college. So she thinks if she can get this full scholarship, then her parents will have to let her pursue her dream of music, even though they have different plans for her. So everything's going fine until this young, attractive cousin of the groom shows up, and they meet, and she finds out that he also is in town to compete in the music competition because, like he wants to go into music, but his family does not want him to. They have different plans for him. So there's a little bit of romance between them, and then there's also this competition, and they both want it, but they also understand that the other person needs it too. So again, very, very fun book. I learned lots about, of course, I love Indian food, but I learned lots about Indian food and wedding traditions, and it was fantastic.
So
Okay.
in the chat, Brittany, I'm not sure if you were referring to this book. I'm a little behind. I was trying not to check my chat in case it would interfere. But Brittany said that this reminds her of a Netflix series, Never Have I Ever. So I didn't know if it was from this one or the Barefoot Dreams of Petra Luna. So I'm not sure.
It's this one.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's about, the series is about an Indian American teenager, and I think it's on about season 3, and she's got an older sister, and they have like an arranged marriage thing, but like she's in high school and she's trying to fit in, and she has crushes on boys. It's very popular among middle school and high school students. So this book would probably be very popular too, because it's along the same lines. It's a really cute series. I love it. I watch it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks,
Cool.
Brittany, for sharing that. I'll put that on my list of things to watch.
And I would say this is a YA book, but again, there's nothing inappropriate in it. It could go much lower in terms of interest and reading level.
I think they have a new big fat Greek wedding. Like, I think they're going back to Greece. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. I can't wait.
I know. Okay. I'll quit hijacking.
Nick Stone, Fast Pitch, is about a young Black girl who lives in Atlanta, and she is on the first all-Black softball team competing in the league in the greater Atlanta area. And she is in charge. She's like the pitcher. She's the leader. And she discovers that her grandfather was a baseball player in the Black leagues, but because of a crime he was accused of that he did not commit, he was kicked out. And so she sets off on this adventure sort of to solve the mystery of or to find the truth behind the accusations that her grandfather committed this crime and derailed his baseball career. At the same time, because she's doing that, she's taking focus off of leading her own team, and that begins to cause some troubles too. If you like Nick Stone, you will like this book. I love Nick Stone, so as soon as it came out, I got it. Okay. The Voting Booth by Brandy Colbert. Brandy Colbert wrote The Only Black Girls in Town, which is a middle grade book that I truly, truly loved. This book is about a young, two young Black teenagers. The male is his family's very politically active, and he's going to vote for the very first time. The girl is also very active, and she is all about registering people to vote and getting the vote out and getting young people involved in politics. And they end up at the voting booth in the morning, like at 8 o'clock before school. And the young boy tries to vote, but they tell him that because he pre-registered in a different district before his parents separated and they moved to where he lives now, that he can't vote. So the young girl, who is again very much an activist, decides to skip school and help him get his vote in. And so the whole day, sort of a series of bad events that happen as they travel to different districts and the courthouse and trying to get them to let him get the right to vote. And along the way, she discovers that her longtime boyfriend really may not be the perfect match for her. And maybe she's falling for this guy that she really likes as they are traveling around the city, getting ready to do voting. But a very interesting book. I think you could make connections to voter suppression. I think there's lots of things you could make with that. Is that my last one?
I think it is, but I think this one would be very timely. That is one thing I've noticed this whole legislative session, this whole last year. There's so many kids that are 18 and they really have no idea of how politics, but I know I didn't either. And I think about just, I don't know, coming up with some cause or some reason to make them want to vote. And I was even talking to my niece, she's 17, 17. She just turned 17, so she won't be old enough for this next election, but I think my nephew MJ will be. And she said, I don't know that MJ, maybe he'll just vote in the big ones, the big elections. She said, but he probably isn't going to, do any of the smaller elections. And that's where I've realized so many of our young people, and even just me as a regular citizen, I don't realize how impactful it is to vote at that lower, looking at the issues, that really will affect me immediately. So this one, I'm going to put this one on my list. I hadn't seen this one yet, but I loved The Only Black Girls in Town. That was one of my
Yes.
favorites we read.
Yes,
Couple of
it's
years
really
ago.
good.
Yeah.
So I just put in the chat my schedule for co-ops this summer. So if you're interested in,
Sorry, guys.
what happened?
Sorry,
you're
I have a
interested-
spreadsheet.
If you're interested in attending some of I'm doing two things. I'm doing a session called Book Talk, Book Trailers, Book Bento Boxes. And then I'm doing my traditional book talking session. Again, if you go to this Google Doc, it has the co-ops, the dates I'm there, and the links to the sessions.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Jeff
you guys
is-
so much. I'm sorry I have to leave, but I wanted to be sure to get all these books in. And again, I think I'm right at 100 for my book talk this summer. I only did like 80 last summer, and I didn't really have time to fill 3 hours. So I've really pushed myself to get enough books in so that I can last 3 hours at the co-ops. Okay,
All right. Well,
you guys have a great day.
all right. So I did pick pink in honor of Dr. Whittingham because he loves pink. So I went with the next set of books. I chose 10. Mine are a little bit different. I don't really have a theme. And I also realized I don't know that mine are as diverse as Jeff's are with characters, except for a few. So I'll go through. I'm going to start with this one. I just read this one. This one was cute. It's by Christy Winge, Best Friends, Bikinis, and Other Summer Catastrophes. I don't know how many of you guys just watched or went back and revisited Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. We had a whole group of women from our church. We all went and saw it and we loved it. And I just love the, best friend books, but this one is a little bit different. Alex and Will are best friends. Alex is a girl, Will's a boy. They're 12, they're next door neighbors. He has at least one younger brother. I think she has 2 younger brothers that she's always stuck with having to babysit. And she's got a parent. Her dad is just kind of a blue collar worker. Her mom is a therapist who does online therapy. And Alex and Will have just turned 12. Every summer they decide they want to do some kind of project. And some years they just kind of blow up, and other years they work. This year they've decided, they had tried a few summers before, maybe when they were 8 or 9, to build a tree house, but they just didn't have the stamina, they didn't have any money. So they've decided this summer that this is the summer they're going to build a tree house together. So they put together this odd job flyer and pass those out around the neighborhood. Well, they spend a lot of time at the swimming pool, and this girl shows up. She's actually in their class. They've just never really talked to her. She's, of course, a popular one. Her name is Rebecca, and she's wearing a green bikini top, actually an entire green bikini, and Will pretty much falls all over himself, even though Alex and Will, they are super immature, like they're still doing diving sticks and things like that. And so this girl comes along that wants to be friends with them, and Alex, she's not having it. She's not a fan. And Will, all of a sudden, he starts actually combing his hair, and he's trying to do this different part, and he starts dressing different. Like even at the swimming pool, he's tucking his t-shirt into his swim trunks, which Alex just thinks is bizarre. She's not ready, to think about boys or any of that. But it was a really cute, just kind of friendship book, but it had a little bit of that mean girl syndrome where Alex, she's not a fan of Rebecca, and so she is not really giving her a chance yet. And so I just thought this one was just a nice one. Upper elementary, maybe middle school, but it didn't get into too much. There is a kiss, but that's about it. But it was really cute. I don't know if anyone else has found this one yet, and I really can't pay attention to chat. So if anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, please feel free to do so. I thought this one was really, really cute. So the next one, let me see if I can get, is Haven Jacobs Saves the Planet by Barbara D. This one, my niece actually told me about it. She is a 5th grade science teacher, and she said that this was one that she would have absolutely loved to have used with her 5th grade science classes. Haven Jacobs is, I think, in 6th grade, 6th or 7th, and she ends up in science class. They watch a video about the glaciers melting and how, climate change is happening and we're pretty much ruining the world. And then she starts to think about the dolphins, or well, not the dolphins first, it's the penguins. And then she starts thinking about all of the different animals that will be affected. And she loves the ocean, loves the water. And so she just becomes obsessed. Like, it is ruining her life. She can't study, can't focus, isn't turning in homework or anything. All she is thinking about is how to save the planet. And like, she even kind of stops talking to her friends because she gets irritated with them. They think she's obsessing, and she is, her parents realize she is. But there is a company that has come in. Their town was kind of dying. It was a really small town, and the one plant closed that everybody had a job. Like, even Haven's dad had been laid off for a few years. Well, he finally has been hired by Gemba, this big company, this plant, and they are doing this etching on glass and using probably some kind of chemical. Well, Haven's class, the science class, it must have been 8th grade. Every 8th grade class does a water study. They've got I guess a river that comes through their town. And so they actually get to go and they use, scientific instruments to check the water samples and do all of these different, they have the probes and all of this stuff. As a former science teacher, I just thought this one was really neat. And I agreed with my niece. I thought, gosh, this one really would be good because it takes them through the scientific process. But when Haven's class starts to do it, they realize there aren't any frogs around. When they start doing the water samples, there's definitely something going on that is not allowing all of the things to live in the water that should be there. And so Haven kind of takes it upon herself she wants to expose this. She puts 2 and 2 together and thinks it's probably Gemba that's doing it, but she's not sure. She does end up giving a interview, and it gets taken beyond what she actually said. And so this one really, really was good, and I could see some great science ties for this one. This one, again, you could do upper elementary, but I think more middle school would just definitely be there. But there's nothing in it that is inappropriate. She's got an older brother. He's kind of a jerk, but he ends up on her side because he talks about when he was in 8th grade 2 or 3 years before that, how many frogs and all of these different things. So he's seeing, that something is different as well. Okay, so the science teacher in me also picked up The Lion of Mars by Jennifer L. Holm. This one's different from what she normally does. This one is definitely science fiction. This is set in the future, and Bell is the main character, and I didn't realize he was even a boy. They're in their suits. They live on Mars. They live in underground tunnels and things. I never really thought about how there is no atmosphere on Mars, so you can't actually live on the planet, but they have created this entire habitat, and there's several different factions that live up their communities, I guess you would say. But Bell's group, they never talk to, they never go see, they never get outside of their community. They stay there all of the time. But and Belle can't really figure out, he's 11 and there's some other kids there too. There's cats that end up there. They live in the little bunker areas with them. He loves cake, and all of the adults end up getting sick. They get some kind of virus. So Belle and the other kids, they have like these tube space things that can go underground to the next communities. And they have actually been out, but they've never actually stopped at any of the communities that Belle ever remembers. And so the kids have to try to go and find help. And they find these other communities, and they live very differently than Belle's community that's so isolated. So the kids are trying to put 2 and 2 together to figure out what happened. Why did his community become so isolated when, these other communities, they actually interact with each other? And the way that the kids get there, they are sent as babies from North America, or I guess from Earth, to come. And it's not just all North America. They're all different countries that are represented in all of the other ones. But these babies show up in this plane, but they send like a nanny or somebody with them, a young person to take care of them, because it takes so long to get there. So I thought, gosh, this one would be also great to go ahead and introduce to a science class if you were studying the planets or habitats, because it really had some great information, scientific information that was just kind of embedded in there, but it wasn't just too overwhelming that I don't think a science person would like it. Because Amy Thompson, I know, isn't a huge fan of the science books, but just that former science teacher in me. Cat Falls Dark Life is set under the ocean, and I think this one would be kind of a neat comparison. If maybe one group was reading The Lion Mars and having their discussions, then the other group, did Dark Life by Cat Falls. It's an older title, probably 10 years old or so, but it would be great for middle school, even junior high. You could do, even though the kid in this one is young, you could still do it, or upper elementary if you wanted to. There's nothing in it that would be inappropriate. Okay, so the next one I am going to talk about is called The Shape of Thunder. This one is a little bit different, kind of has a sci-fi element in it, but this one is a little darker. It's by Jasmine Warga. There are 2 best friends. It reminded me, so on there you can see it says Beautiful Story, Rebecca Steed said that. This one reminded me of Rebecca Steed's book, When You Get Here. It's that time travel one. This one, they love, Cora loves Quinn loves the story of Rebecca Steed's When You Get Here. It's that time travel. They're trying to find a wormhole. So Cora, in this one, Cora's on the left. Her sister had passed away last year in a school shooting. Quinn is the little girl on the right, and they haven't spoken to each other in a year because Quinn's brother was the shooter of Cora's sister. And or I may have gotten those. Anyway, Cora was the one who lost her sister. Actually, I think she is on the right because she was Black. The other one's brother, he was white. He was really into hunting. This one was a pretty deep book about school shootings because Quinn is walking around. She's carrying the guilt of what her brother did. She saw him that morning. She didn't see him with a gun or anything. She had no idea this was going to happen. But she still thinks if she could have spoken to him that morning, he had started to get just more and more disrespectful to her mother. And he talked a lot about race, and just he was just very politically kind of motivated, and she wishes that she had spoken to him or started to kind of have a conversation to let him know that he was not being nice or fair even to her mother. He wasn't as bad to his dad, but it was on Cora's 12th birthday. Quinn leaves this package on her doorstep with a note. She's decided that she wants to try to find a wormhole to go back in time and make sure that this never happened. And so it was, you know, it was good. They were they really delve into kind of time travel and how it might be possible. But, you know, of course, it doesn't happen. It doesn't get that sci-fi, if that makes sense. But this one was really good. I think this would be a good one as a class or maybe as a small group to read together, maybe a book club, and really talk about, you know, the power of looking at how you treat others and, you know, maybe trying to intervene before something really big happens. This one might be a good one to partner with like the school counselor if that's something. And I would do this one probably middle school and up. It was, I don't know that I would do it as, I think it was on our Charlie Mae Simon reading list, but it was not one that made the list. It wouldn't have been really appropriate for 4th or 5th graders, but I think 6th, 7th, you know, somewhere in there, I think it would be really good. So the next one is also a little bit different. This one's a little bit deeper, but I loved it. It was called A Kind of Spark. It was also on our original reading list for the Charlie Mae Simon, but it didn't end up even qualifying for the list because it's set in Scotland and because the author is Scottish. But it was really a neat read. It's by Elle McNichol. Addie is 11 and she is autistic, and she knows she's autistic. She's, you know, grown up autistic. She actually has 2 older sisters. One of them is also autistic, but has different autistic traits, because that's something. So in our church, we've got a young man who is autistic, and I speak to his mother a lot and we talk about things. And I don't know how many people say, well, I didn't know he was autistic, because he doesn't have the typical symptoms. And when his mother and I speak, we've realized like there is no typical autistic person, and so neurodivergent, I guess, would be a better term. But Addie is 11 and she decides to campaign to try to get pay a tribute. She wants a memorial to some women who were killed, or I think it was women and men, when her town way back when had some witch trials. And so there were some people that just didn't fit into the community. And so people decided that they were witches. And Addie has figured out probably that they were different. They were, you know, different like her. Could they have been maybe autistic and people just didn't understand? One of her quotes that I loved, I went ahead and wrote it down. She said, "I'm autistic. I see things that others do not. I hear sounds that they can ignore. Sometimes I feel things all at once." She just gets overstimulated. "I think about the witches with no one to speak for them. Not everyone in our small town understands, but if I keep trying, maybe someone will. I won't let the witches be forgotten, because there is more to their story, just like there is more to me." So Addie really, she campaigns, she goes to the town council, she really steps up, you know, just to try to get this memorial put in place in their town square of this historic event that nobody talks about. And so it was a neat opportunity for her. This next one, this is different than what I normally read. I don't love sci-fi as much, this one is definitely sci-fi, but this one's called Weird Kid by Greg Van Eekhout. This young man, he is an alien. When his name is Jake, he's always trying to, he knows that he's got these shape-shifting qualities. And now that he is kind of hitting puberty, it's like he can't control them. So his parents are afraid to let him go to school. They know, they found him in this pile of goo, you know, and have raised him, but they've always tried to hide that Jake had these abilities. And now though, he can't, like all of a sudden he'll think about something and he'll have, you know, this weird extra extension of him that he can't control. But he meets this young lady, this girl who she's really science minded. All of a sudden there's these different goo pools that show up and different things start to happen in the town. People start to act really weird. And I don't want to give away too much. I'm really bad about book talking because I always want to tell the whole story. But she figures out that there's something different about him. And so she's not like put off by it or anything. So she's trying to help him figure out what's going on in their town. And it was really good. I liked it. Long Lost, Weird Kid, you could probably do upper elementary, middle level. It's not nothing bad at all, not scary really at all. Long Lost by Jacqueline West. I don't know if anyone has read this one. I loved it. I read this one actually I think this one is from 2020 or 2021. But I love the cover of this one. I know Jeff earlier said you can't judge a book by its cover, and I always try to tell kids that, but I just thought this one was super cool. Fiona is 11 and she and her family move out of the city. Well, they move out of her town. So she's having to leave her friends and what she's comfortable with because her sister is a really good ice skater, but the practices are like an hour and a half away. So the parents decide that they're going to move closer, so that the star daughter can practice and make the Olympics and do all of those things. So Fiona's just kind of this afterthought, but they move to this small town outside of the city, though, that's closer to where the practices are. And Fiona doesn't want to go to the practices. She's tired of going to events. She's tired of going to meets. She's tired of, making sure that her sister always has everything that she needs. She kind of feels left out. So she finds the library. It's in this old house, like an old mansion that was donated by this lady that had passed away. She was an heiress. And Fiona finds this book that doesn't really have anything on the cover. She starts to read it. She ends up trying to check it out and she can't. And then she finds the book again and she reads this story, and it's kind of a ghost story and it's two sisters, but there are some definite parallels between Fiona and her sister and the two sisters in this book. And she reads this book, but apparently this book doesn't actually exist. But there are just this ends up being kind of a unsolved crime drama. There was from the century before, these two sisters in this book, something happens to one of them. And so she's trying to unravel kind of that mystery. But this one had it was a little scary. So I don't know that I would do 4th grade for this. I might do 6th grade and up. But if you kind of like to be scared a little bit, this one was good. It had a little ghost story with it. Okay, so this next one is the first book in a series, and it's called Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. This one's definitely YA. I would say 8th grade and up. It's not bad, but it is a little bit gory, and there is this one really mean guy. There's a little bit of innuendo in it, but nothing just untoward. I liked this cover too. So I don't know if you noticed in the middle, there's a lady with like red, she's got pearls, and then you had 2 on either side. And this one, it starts off, once upon a time, there was a horrible girl. So Vanja is the main girl. I think she's the one there in the red. And she knows that no gift is freely given. She, there were 11 of them, or no, she was the 13th in their family. And so her mother she gives her away to death and fortune. And so this one definitely has some mysterious things and some fantasy elements to it. And she becomes the helper of Princess Gisela, and she's her servant. She grows up with Princess Gisela, but she envies Princess Gisela's life. And so she ends up taking these magic pearls, and she takes Princess Gisela's life from her. She can, with the pearls, she can transform and look exactly like the princess. So she leaves the princess penniless, homeless, and just left to fend on her own. But she realizes, Vanja realizes she's never going to escape death and fortune. So she takes things upon her own, and she becomes a thief. And so she is trying to get enough money to buy her freedom. So she will be free from death and fortune. But she ends up making one of the like fairies mad, and it's the wrong one, who then puts a curse on her. And so she's trying to figure out, her body starts to turn to jewels. Like she ends up just starting to turn into these jewels, and her body, she's going to be stone within, I think she has 2 weeks to try to figure out and try to get rid of the curse. This one was really, really, really good. It had, a curse, it had gremlins in it. There is an element of mystery. There's some friendship. There's a little bit of romance, not a whole lot. She ends up falling in love with this kind of nerdy prefect, who is, he's actually tracking her because, she's the thief, and the prefects are the ones they come after and make sure that everybody is following the rules. But he's nerdy, and he's really, I really, really like him. And I haven't read the second one yet, so I'm not sure if it's as good. Okay, so my last, I think I have 2 more. Okay, these are different, and this is not normally what I read. Small Town Pride by Phil Stamper. This is a debut novel for middle school. Jake ends up coming out to his parents. He is the only openly gay kid in his small Ohio town. I think it's Barton Springs. But he comes out to his parents because there is this news event on, and it's this 18 or 19-year-old who has just created, or in his city or whatever, they just had their first Pride Festival. And Jake just realizes he wants that. He wants to be able to do that in his town. But he really, his best friend knows it's a girl, but he finally breaks down and tells his parents, and his parents are actually very supportive. And his dad just does these like really big things to try to show support. So the day after Jake comes out to his parents, he goes to school, he's coming home, and he's getting off the bus, and he lives right across from the mayor and her son. And so he's getting off the bus, and they have a flagpole, his parents do, in their front yard, and they have the American flag on it. Well, his dad has bought the biggest pride or gay pride flag, and it is hanging there for everybody to see. And so Jake is like, he wasn't totally ready to come out all the way yet, to everybody at school, but it's out by then. And, so his dad's trying to show his support. The mayor, though, starts to receive complaints. A few people are even concerned that the flag will lead to something bigger, like maybe a pride parade. And when Jake hears that, he's like, well, that's not that ridiculous. I would like to go ahead and set one up. So, but he knows that he's going to need to get the mayor on his side. He's going to have to go to the city council. And so he is trying to figure out, how to do that. And this was a good story. It's good. Middle school, junior high. I'm trying to think. I think Jake is maybe 7th grade. So it was good. It wasn't too much. He does develop a crush on this other guy, and he talks about some of these things, but it's not, it doesn't go any further. But I think it would be good for our kids, especially in these smaller towns, that maybe, feel like they want a book that they identify with. So I thought it was good. Okay, so this next one, I am not a fan of graphic novels. I actually have this one here with me. And the real Riley Mays by Rachel Elliott. I picked it up. It really has good drawings. It's funny, but this one, there was a little bit I thought, I don't like this one. And then by the end, I ended up loving it. So Riley is right here, and she's a girl, but she wants short hair. It starts off, she has longer hair, but it bothers her and she hates it. So she ends up cutting it off. She identifies as a girl. She's only 11. She's in 5th grade, and she's just having a rough year. She likes to draw, nothing but drawing. Like all of her papers at school, she doodles on them constantly. And she really, really wants to take some drawing classes at a studio, a local studio for kids, but it's only September and she has already been in trouble at school and had 3 notes sent home. And so her parents are at their wits' end. They're like, it's 1 month in, you are getting in trouble. She's just goofy, and she's the class clown. She has this idol who is a sketch comedian, Joy Powers. And so she's always like trying to think of skits that she could do that would, make Joy Powers laugh. Well, there's this new kid who comes, and he gets her humor and he laughs about it. But he ends up sharing with her. She goes to his house and she figures out that he's got 2 dads, and she meets the dads and she's like, oh, okay. And she starts to kind of think, well, how did they know? How did they meet? And she never really openly says she might be gay, but she starts to think about it and she realizes she actually has a crush on Joy Powers. There's another girl at school that she hangs out with a little bit, Kate, but Kate is very different when she is around the girly girls. And so, but Riley and Kate, they have some drawing things. They like this one game, and so they create these comics, and they really get along, and they're not thinking about liking each other. It's none of that. But of course, the other people in the class start to say that they like each other. And Riley, that's what I think I liked about this. I think we have so many middle school and even upper elementary kids and even adults who forget that sometimes you can get a crush on somebody of the same sex, but it doesn't mean you are necessarily gay. And so it doesn't ever really talk about that. She just kind of finds her niche. She's got an older brother and he gets her humor. She has Kate, and then she has the new boy. I can't remember his name. I was trying to see if I had it written down. I don't remember his name, but by the end, it just shows that, that she can just hang out and these people get her. And so I thought it was a really, really cute read. I think it's appropriate for upper elementary and middle school, those kids just kind of questioning and thinking about things. So. All right. Well, I think that is all of mine. And I don't know if anyone else has read any of those, but I thought this one was a cute book. So if you're looking to add to your LGBTQ plus community books or wherever, or just your graphic novels, I would recommend it. So Amy, I think you are up next.
I am. So I have no theme either. It's pretty random. Some of these I have read because I read for the Diamond Committee. Some I've just picked up because they've interested me. Some are award winners, and I thought, I should look at that. So you're going to see a really eclectic mix of books today. So my first one, and I really love this one when I found it, This is actually the winner of the 2023 Caldecott Medal. This is Hot Dog. Now, I like the story better than I think I like the pictures. I've seen other Caldecott medals have, better, but the story is really, really good. So I can relate to this dog. It's called Hot Dog. And Erin, if you'll go to the next screen, there's a couple of pages from the book that I wanted to show you. Oh, did you download it? Okay, thank you. I'll share. Okay.
Erin, if you're talking, you're muted.
What? Somebody said I'm muted. Yes, give me just a sec. Or do you have it up,
I got
Amy,
it.
or is that me? Perfect.
I
Right.
got it. Y'all see it now. Okay, so this is my picture, one of the first pictures from the book, and it's written, like poetry. Concrete crumbles, sirens screech, is how it starts. But the idea is that this dog is living in this very busy city, and it's hot. It's hot everywhere. It's so hot that when he walks, his feet are burning. It's so crowded. It's so noisy. It's like summertime and he's just done. And then he gets to the point that his owner tries to get him to walk. And here he is going across a crosswalk. And he says, won't move one bit. I mean, he is just laid out flat because he cannot go anymore. He's too hot. He's too tired. He's had it. And so in the book, they end up going, they go on a train and a bus, and they basically end up at the beach for the day. And oh, that spoke to my soul because I'm very much like that. Everything gets really, really hectic, but there's just something about just looking at the water and the sand. It's just very calming and centering. And that does that for him. And so he's just so happy to spend that day at the beach. But this is definitely one worth checking out because this hot dog has a lot of character. Now, the second book that I have, I chose it because of my sister. She hates hugs. Hugging is not her thing. And I'm sure that some people can relate. So this one is called Don't Hug Doug. He doesn't like it. And it's a really great story to use with kids about, appropriateness and, our own bodies and giving consent and all of those things, because he's like, I just don't like it. And I love the way I had up here, the way that he described it. He says they're too squishy, too smushy. They're just too much. He can't handle them. And so people ask him, well, what about ice cream hugs or mom or grandma hugs or best friend hugs? And he's like, nope, none of it. The only person that can hug him is his mom. He is just not interested. And so then people start asking him about if other people like hugs. And he said, I don't know, but you know what you could do? You could ask them. And so I really liked that because, ask before you hug, because they might not like it. like my sister. And at the end, he basically says, you know what? I like high fives. We can do that. So this was just a really, really great book. And Melissa, you're in here, so you need to read this book.
She
It's
just
so-
put so true into the chat. So for those of you guys that don't know, Melissa is Amy's sister. So she was talking about her.
Hello.
I texted her before and I said, okay, you have to at least pay attention to my second book because it's so you. Yeah, so you got to get this book. Okay, the next book that I read, oh, this one was so hilarious. Make Way for Butterfly. It's a companion to The Very Impatient Caterpillar, which is actually the most recent Diamond Award. And so that's a good one to read too. But I love this one. I mean, this butterfly has all kinds of character, and he has a friend that's a bee, and the bee is talking all about what his job is to pollinate flowers. Well, the butterfly is like, basically, well, my life stinks. You pollinate flowers all over the world. I don't do any of that. Being a butterfly is terrible. So then he tries to be like the bee and do some pollinating. And it gets quite funny. And he keeps adding different things to himself so that he could do it. And at the end, he's like dressed himself completely like a bee. So it's a butterfly in like a bee costume, trying to go and pollinate flowers. But at the end, the bee says, you know what? There is something that you can do that I can't do. And so he sends him on his mission. So it's a really, really cute book. If you haven't seen it, you have to check this out.
Shelley had put in the chat that she thinks that the author of that one is going to be at the ALA conference this summer in Chicago, which I get to go to. So I'm going to have to find this one. That'll be fun. Oh,
Hey.
Shelley said no. Okay, never mind.
Well, I think, they usually try to get them for the Literacy Association conference.
That's
So-
what she meant. It wasn't. Oh,
Yeah.
The other ALA. Okay, got it.
I was thinking that was it. That's a state conference. That's in Benton. So that's definitely one to check out. And they do a great job at getting authors there. So this is my other one that I just love. And I do dyslexia therapy with 5 different kids, and they've all had to listen to this book because I love it that much, but they end up loving it too. So we have Norman, and he's the one here with the shovel, and his best friend is a tree. And you just have to get past that, your best friend is a tree. What in the world is this tree can do that could be your best friend? But it talks about how, he and the tree, the tree leans and they can hug each other. It's really, really cute. But, somehow another tree sprouts next to it. And so Norman gets really, really uncomfortable. And he feels like, oh, well, this tree is going to like that tree, and it's not going to be my friend anymore. And when they start coming together, the trees are friends. Norman's like, no, this is just too much. And so he digs the tree up and gets on a boat and takes it off somewhere. And I'll let you read the rest of it. I don't want to spoil the whole story, but it ends really well. But it's titled Norman Didn't Do It because he tries to act like, I don't know how this tree is missing. I didn't do it. And then he's like, wait a minute, somebody could have seen me dig up this tree. So this is a really, really good one. And you can get this through the library here. And they even have an audio version, which was pretty good. One of my kiddos wanted to hear the audio read it rather than me. And it was really, really good. So, this is another one. I pulled this one out because I'm looking for it. I had it here. This is What Can You Do with a Rock? But it's by Pat Zelo Miller, and she was a recent Diamond Award winner. And so I thought, well, I would pull this one for sure. But it's basically talking about, people just walk by rocks and they don't notice them, and they don't notice what they look like, what they feel like, what they can do. And then other people see them and they realize how remarkable they are, and they appreciate them and what all you can do with them. And he talks about, you can kick it, you can skip it, you can drop it, and think about all of the sounds that a rock can make. And then he talks about all different kinds of rocks, and then how you can study them and change them. And then at the end, he's sharing them. So it's a really, really cute story. What can you do with a rock? Oh, I'm clicking. I love this one. Keeping the City Going. It's a Caldecott Medal winner. And I love this one because it is one of our books about the pandemic and what all we went through. And it talks about, it's from one little girl's point of view, and how, everyone was inside. No one could go outside except that they had to go to like the grocery store. But then there are people that were out and that had to go out in this, scary, who knows what's going to happen. And so we were just so thankful for them. But it starts with, we are here at home now, watching the world through our windows and wondering what will happen next. Outside, we see the city we know, but not as we've seen it before. Outside, the city is strangely still. Store doors are locked and their windows are dark, and our neighbors all stay hidden. The voice of the city is low and the streets are almost empty. And I mean, we lived that, right? So it's just, it's really interesting seeing it in a book, and then from a kiddo's perspective. But they talk about the people that had to be out, the people that delivered food, the people that worked at the grocery store, the people that drove buses and helping others get to and from the grocery store, the people that kept the city clean, the mailmen and women, paramedics, doctors, and just all of the different people. And then it even goes to the end where we see our neighbors again, now at their windows and now on stoops, not on balconies and roofs. And we hear the voice of the city, but not as we've heard it before. The sounds at first are low, a clap, a whistle, a call. The sounds are low and then they grow. We hear the city say to us, and we say back to the city, that we are all still here and we are here together. And that's just a beautiful way to put it about, how we've kind of come out of it. But, I'm really glad that they said that about at first, that it doesn't sound the same, because nothing is the same, honestly, since then. So I'm glad they paid homage to that. So that's a really good book to read with your kids, and something that they can relate to on the pandemic. This is one that I liked, and it could not make it on the Diamond list because it's written and illustrated by Lucy Ruth Cummins, and I think that she's in a different country. So, but it is just so cute, I had to share it. They're vampires that are penguins. And so it's adorable. And it just tells the story of these Van penguins, and what they do throughout a day, and how they go and visit a zoo, and what they like to visit there. So it's a really cute and fun one, but it's funny because they're Van penguins and they are the Dracula family. But go into the zoo, they pose for a picture, they stop for a balloon, all of those fun things that you would do when you're out, and that you wouldn't expect vampires to do during the day. So really, really cute read. Watercress. I loved this one, and it has all kinds of awards. The Caldecott Medal, Newbery Honor Book, Picture Book Award winner from the Asian Pacific American Library Association. So this is one, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth checking out. And so it just basically is talking about a young girl is riding with her family, and they're driving, and all of a sudden on the side of the road, the mom says stop, and mom and dad realize that what they see is watercress. And so they dig into their trunk, and they get paper bags and scissors, and this is something that they did in China. And so they got off the side of the road and they cut all of this watercress to bring home and to cook. And it says, on the dinner table that night is a dish of watercress, glistening with garlicky oil and freckled with sesame seeds. The mud and the snails are long gone, but I still don't want to eat any of it. I only want to eat vegetables from the grocery store. Because the kiddo's like, what? We're getting something from the side of the road? But it was a memory of their family and what they used to do. And also something that they need. And it says, Mom and Dad pressed me to try some. It is fresh, Dad says. It is free, Mom says. I shake my head. Free is bad. Free is hand-me-down clothes and roadside trash heap furniture, and now dinner from a ditch. And so, it talks about how the kiddo is dealing with that, and how being in poverty. And so the mom shares about that when they lived during a famine, they ate anything that they could, and it was free. So it was a really, really good book.
Amy Ann said they read it during the Asian Pacific Islander month, and she had some watercress for them to sample. Just a little.
I love that.
Yeah. And Ashley said there was a train wreck in Atkins when she was a kid, and it caused a cucumber spill, because that's the home of the pickles, or capital of the pickles. They were stopping at the pickle plant. My sister made me pick up cucumbers from the side of the highway so they wouldn't go to waste. She was mortified to have to collect road cucumbers.
It was awful. We had paper bags and were out there for hours picking up road cucumbers.
You can see how this little girl feels about clipping, ditch weeds or something. It's probably what she thinks. But being in poverty, we weren't extreme poverty, but my family was very blue collar, and it was paycheck to paycheck. And I remember going around and looking and seeing like furniture and things that people threw out, and Dad would pick it up and fix it. And not necessarily for us, but he would pick it up and fix it, and then it would be in the next yard sale. So Yeah, things like that, you know, you have to do sometimes to make ends meet. So it's one that I think a lot could relate to. All right, the next one is Wildfire, and I always try to find whatever fire person picture book is out. I had one last year. I know I shared with you all because my husband is a firefighter, so I'm always interested. But this is about there's a fire in the forest, and they had to end up getting the planes that drop the water in to attack the fire. And then they had smoke jumpers that came in, and they were knocking down the flames and trying to save the forest. But you know, it made me think very much of like Hot Shots. I can't remember the name of that movie, but the Granite Mountain crew in Arizona, they were hot shot firefighters, and they did things like this, and like their whole crew died in a really bad fire. But it connected me to make me think about that, because it talks about how they have fire lines and what happens when the fire crosses the fire lines. But you know, at the end, in this book, the firefighters get to go home and the animals get to go back in the forest. And even though it looks a little bit different, it's still their home, and it will grow back. I had to throw this one in there because if you've ever seen Carla Hall, on one of her, I always watch her on the contest shows, baking championships or something. There's several that she's on, and I love watching her. And this is a story about her and her grandma and Christmas cornbread. And it's something, you know, that they did every year, and she just, you know, shares that memory of doing that with her grandmother and eating it. And then at the end, you get Carla's Christmas cornbread recipe. So I thought this was just a really fun one. All right, Follow That Frog is the next one, and it's basically there's this frog. I'm gonna how it starts here for you. Someone comes in knocking at the door, and you know, they were trying to ignore whoever was at the door, and then they opened it, and there's a frog, and something got swallowed by the frog, so they have to follow the frog to get what's out of the frog. And it's all of the adventures that they take in following this frog and trying to get it back. So that's another one. This is the one I just love, partly because I love turtles, but another part because I love it when they're smart alecky. I love it when they have, you know, a good picture book that is even for adults. So this is called Turtles Are Found on Every Continent Except Antarctica. And you see the turtle is saying, we'll see about that. And so in this story, that's what he's told. He's told that, you know, they're only in Antarctica. And he's like, well, I'm going to Antarctica, and I'm going to show you that turtles can go there. And he's telling this to an owl, and the owl says, you can't go to Antarctica. Get back to your page this instant, you know, get back on track. And so the turtle says, well, it's a fact that there are not turtles in Antarctica, but I'm going to go and prove them wrong. And he tells the owl that this is a book about facts. And the owl says, here's a fact. Owls don't like to be disturbed by animal facts. So I like the owl. But on this adventure, he ends up with a dung beetle, because they're found on every continent except Antarctica. So the dung beetle's coming along. And the owl decided to come along because they're not in Antarctica. And then the owl said this book is just not going as it was planned. Because then they end up with a snake and a mouse and a bee. Because, you know, they don't have those in Antarctica. And they are going to be the first. And then they run into the frog. Frogs are found on every continent except Antarctica. This one won't be distracted by a wandering group of rogue animals. Ignore them, frog. And guess what? The frog comes along because he wants to get to Antarctica. And they get there and they're like, this is ridiculous. This is so cold. There's a reason we're not in Antarctica. And they meet some penguins, and the penguins say, look at those strange looking penguins. But they talk about the coldest temperature that was recorded on Earth was Antarctica, and they're all just way too cold, and they don't know why in the world they're there, that they don't really belong in Antarctica. There's a reason. Excuse me. So, hilarious book, one that you just have to see. And I stumbled across this one. This is my last one. I do often read more books geared towards K2 because I was reading for the Diamond List. And I primarily work in early literacy and intervention, but I do love my chapter books. I'm always glad that Erin and Jeff are throwing something out there to check out. This one somebody shared on Facebook. I don't even remember. I was afraid it was Erin and she was going to have it.
It wasn't me. I haven't read it yet, and I totally want to because I feel like it would pair really well with what's going on right now. So I know I have it. It's in my queue.
Absolutely, it goes along with right now, and I'm not quite finished with it. And so I thought about taking it out, but I thought, no, I'm going to go ahead and share it because it's just that good so far. And it's this boy, and they're reading a book in their class. And actually, I wanted to share with you the first page. According to a lot of the adults in our town, everything here is perfect. We don't have accidents. We don't have any crime at all. We don't have Halloween anymore or junk food. We don't have bad thoughts. We don't use any bad words like cancer or death or sex or donut, and see how they're all crossed out. A lot of people thank Miss Laura Samuel-Sett for this. She's as famous as a person can get in our town, and probably the only reason the local newspaper is still in print. Everyone reads her letters there. Miss Sett is also a 6th grade teacher, but the adults around here are her students as much as kids like me who pass through her classroom at Independence North Elementary School. Those adults join Miss Sett in letter writing, sitting on the town council and committees and making rule after rule after rule. They seem to believe that rules equal safety. By making more rules, they are keeping us all safe and keeping the town's reputation spotless. Miss Sett thinks that if we even think about bad things, our whole town could fall right into the toilet of the world. And the last sentence cut off, but it was, and just like all of the other towns around us. And so I thought, just reading that puts me in, because I felt very much like this legislative session. So anyway, this boy ends up in her class, and he is, ready for her. And then he's like, whoa, she's a really nice teacher and she's so sweet and kind to them. And he's like, I don't equate these two things, this woman that's doing all this to us, and this really, really nice teacher. And so she puts them in book groups and they get to choose of the books that are there. And one of the books he chooses, and she says, don't read ahead. That's like the number one rule. And he can't do that. So, you know, he reads ahead. And he starts seeing these black rectangles in the book where things are marked out. And he's like, I don't understand. Why are people keeping us from reading something that's in this book? That doesn't make any sense. So he goes to the principal and says, look, someone is censoring, you know, what we're reading. And the principal acts all horrified, has no idea what's going on. But you kind of suspect that the principal does. So this boy and his friend go out and his parents, he lives with his mom and his grandpa. And he still sees his dad, but his dad's kind of weird. He thinks he's an alien from space. So he's a little different. But his mom and his grandfather teach him to, you know, speak up for what's right. And so grandpa went out and bought him the book so that he could see what these words were. And horror of horrors, one of the words was breast. And he's like, what is wrong with that word? Why are you censoring this? That doesn't make any sense. And so he's on a mission that everyone should get a copy of this book. And he wants the school to provide it, to get everyone a copy so that they can see what exactly the author intended for it to say. Because he said without those words, even though it was just a couple of words, it made a difference in the context of what was being written. And he said that just changed how he saw the story. So, and it wasn't anything bad, but I thought, oh boy, this is where we are, and that's sad. So I encourage you to read this. I'm about halfway through and I am loving it. So hopefully it's one that you all will like too. And that is all I have.
I think in the chat, Melissa had put in that this is being recorded and you'll have access to it later. She also, there is a Google form there that has the graduate program interest form. You'll get your PD certificate in an email within 24 to 48 hours. And you'll get an evaluation form with your certificate. So please, please complete it. We do love feedback, and it's got a link to the other free sessions, and it also takes you to the past sessions from our YouTube channel. So I think that was all of ours, wasn't it, Amy? I know at the very beginning we asked, you know, what other people are reading, and so you might go back and look. Somebody said that they were a crime drama junkie, and so I just actually, we listened, my parents and I did, we took a trip to Austin not too long ago. And we listened to one that was on Audible, and I think it was free. It was brand new. And it was, if anyone ever watched the Twin Peaks series, wasn't that like back in the 80s, 90s?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. But there is a true, it's a nonfiction about it. It was called Murder at Teal's Pond, and it's definitely an adult book. It's a little awkward to listen to it with my parents on the way to Austin and back, but we were, you know, it went into the weeds a little bit kind of politically, but it was good. Murder at Teal's Pond by David Bushman, Mark Givens, and Mark Frost did the foreword. So I enjoyed it. So if you're looking for an adult book, that one was pretty cool. So I think I just hijacked it. Sorry. We're so glad you guys joined us today. But I was looking at those lists, and so I grabbed a couple of other suggestions that people had put in. The Inheritance series was one that I had read a few years ago and I loved it, but sometimes I want to go back. So I think that's all we had. We'll hang out if anyone wants to chat.
And just a reminder about our graduate programs, if you need a library degree or a literacy or a dyslexia degree, we're here to help. And if not, there's a zillion other programs that we have. So we encourage you to check out. All of our graduate programs are online.
Yep.
So if you're wanting to add something.
Yeah. And I'm hoping everybody is found at least something new to read. And I know I did. I'm excited.